Good evening. I'm Elizabeth Slattery, and welcome to the Heritage Foundation. On behalf of Heritage and the National Constitution Center, thank you for coming to our Supreme Trivia event. We can hear one of our teams out there. They'll be coming out in just a minute. So we have two teams tonight of top Supreme Court litigators who are ready to go head-to-head in rounds of trivia about the Supreme Court's history, scandals, and much more. Before we introduce the teams, I'd like to introduce my co-host for the evening, here representing the National Constitution Center, Sheldon Gilbert.
Thank you.
So thanks for being here.
And welcome to basically Super Bowl for law nerds. So we're very excited. We're going to kick things off by introducing the teams. It's my privilege to introduce Team Jefferson. So with Team Jefferson first, the heckling has already started. Come on out, Team Jefferson. We're going to start with Lisa Blatt. Lisa Blatt heads up. Come on up, Lisa. Lisa Blatt heads up Arnold and Porter's appellate and Supreme Court practice. You know, someone recently just said that sometimes a superstar is just a superstar, and Lisa is a superstar among superstars. She has argued more cases at the Supreme Court than any other woman, and even more impressive, she has won 94% of her cases, which is a remarkable record. Welcome, Lisa. Next up, we have Ian Gershengorn. Ian heads up Jenner and Block's Supreme Court practice and has held such fantastic positions as Acting Solicitor General of the United States for the Obama administration, and with over 12 oral arguments under his belt, is ready to compete today. Welcome, Ian. And last but definitely not least, Charles Rothfeld. Charles is special counsel at Mayor Brown. He's worked on over 200 Supreme Court cases in his career, and he's often hailed as someone who's 12 moves ahead of everybody else. And he literally wrote the book on federal appellate practice, and I brought it for him to sign. Welcome, Charles.
All right, and for Team Madison, why don't you guys come on out? Team Madison. Come on down. Here they come. So first up, he's got to charge his phone. Coming up, we've got John Elwood. He is a partner at Vincent & Elkins and an author of the always enjoyable Relist Watch for SCOTUS blog. Welcome, John. Next up, we have Paul Larkin. He's Heritage's resident Supreme Court expert, while he spends his days cranking out law review articles on everything from economic liberties to prisoner dog rehabilitation programs. Paul once served in the Solicitor General's office and argued dozens of cases at the Supreme Court. Welcome, Paul. And rounding out Team Madison is Kevin Marshall, a partner at Jones Day, one of the only ones left around after Don McGahn raided the place for judges, and a former Bush administration lawyer. Welcome, Kevin. So keeping score for us tonight is Madison, no affiliation with Team Madison, from the National Constitution Center. We'll check in with her throughout to see how the teams are doing. And so now for the ground rules. We'll flip a coin, a very special coin that Sheldon brought, to determine which team starts. Then we'll alternate reading questions by team. Team members may briefly confer with one another before answering. If the team whose turn it is answers incorrectly or doesn't know the answer, the opposing team may steal the question. Regardless of whether the opposing team gets it right or not, they get the next question, and so on. Each question is worth 1 point, each answer is worth 1 point, and there will be 6 rounds of questions. The final round will be a rapid response round with 10 questions per team. In the event of a tie, we'll do another rapid response round until we have a winner. The team that lost the coin flip will go first at the very last question, so we have an even distribution of questions for both teams. And at the end of an hour, one team will be named the victors and awarded the Supreme Trivia Champion gavels that you see here on stage. So with that, let's toss the coin and get started.
All right. So this coin has Chief Justice John Marshall on one side and the Supreme Court on the other. So it only seems appropriate that if it comes up Marshall, Madison wins. So with that, we will toss the coin. And it does come up Marshall, so Madison goes first. All right.
All right. Are you ready?
Of course.
Okay, first question. And this is from the category Supreme Quotes. Which justice wrote, that 3 generations of imbeciles are enough?
Holmes, Buck versus Bell.
That is correct. That's
Ooh.
1 point for Team Madison.
Maybe the case for bonus points. All right.
No pin sites, don't want to show off.
All right. Team Jefferson, in which case did Justice Antonin Scalia call the majority's reasoning, quote, pure applesauce? It's the applesauce case.
Yeah, probably.
Say Bergefell?
It's King versus Burwell. There's so many snarky
We get a
dissents to
chance?
choose from. All right.
All right, next question for Team Madison. Which justice popularized the phrase, "I know it when I see it"?
Potter Stewart.
That is correct. And do you know what the context was?
It's
you want details?
obscenity. And what is it, like? It's like Janice Yellow or whatever the heck versus.
Yeah, we don't need the case.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
Do you want the R or the X-rated answer to that?
All right, so that's a point for Team Madison. Next question for Team Jefferson.
Which justice is credited with coining the phrase the right to privacy in an 1890 Law Review article? The right to privacy.
Brandeis.
Brandeis, that's correct. Very good. He had a collaborative informational privacy. That's right. Very good.
Just one. We got to celebrate
All
the
right,
victories when they come.
Team
to us.
Madison. Which Chief Justice coined the phrase evolving standards of decency, which has become a touchstone for the court's 8th Amendment jurisprudence?
We could have. It's Earl Warren.
We'll go with Earl Warren.
That is correct. Point for Team Madison.
Very good. All right. No, this is a particularly heavy question. Which Chief Justice? Presidents come and go, but the Supreme Court goes on forever.
That was a.
Someone told me
Fair
this was
clue.
a rap trivia.
Leading question.
It's a hefty question.
It's a hefty question.
Come on. Taft.
That's right. William Howard Taft, who of course was president and chief. All right.
Next question. Last term, Chief Justice John Roberts wrote that the infamous Korematsu decision had been overruled in the court of history. A similar phrase appeared in a 1965 dissenting opinion in a Sherman Antitrust Act case. Who wrote this? And I can give you a hint. It's a justice that later left the court to become an ambassador.
Arthur Goldberg.
And was the hint too much? That is correct.
All right. All right, Team Jefferson. Which long-serving justice argued in a dissent that just as a corporation is considered a person before the courts, quote, so it should be as respect groves of trees, swamplands, or even air? Which justice says that air can file a lawsuit?
Go Justice Douglas.
Justice Douglas is correct. Very good. The case is Sierra Club versus Morton, about a ski resort.
All right, next question for Team Madison. Which staunch defender of democracy and a restrained judiciary declared, if the people want to go to hell, I will help them with it?
Oliver Wendell Holmes.
That is correct. That concludes the first category, and we will now move on to before they were justices.
So this category is before they were justices. All right, the first question is about Byron Whizzer White took a leave of absence during law school to play professional football. What team did Byron Whizzer White play for?
Detroit Lions.
Detroit Lions is correct. Very good. He was one of the first athletic players.
He earned $15,000 per season. Pretty impressive. Okay, next up. Which future justice fought to have the first ritual bat mitzvah in her synagogue, arguing it was, quote, no less important than the ritual bar mitzvah for
Kagan.
boys?
Kagan.
That is correct, and at the ceremony, she read from the Book of Ruth. That's another point for Team Madison.
Okay, here we go. All right, Team Jefferson.
On Wikipedia.
Jefferson, this one's for you. Which future great Chief Justice married the daughter of Thomas Jefferson's lost love, Rebecca Burwell, much to the dismay of Jefferson, who was this Chief Justice's arch
This
nemesis?
is King versus Burwell again?
We'll go with Marshall.
That's correct, Chief Justice John Marshall. Very good. You know, when John Marshall popped the question to Polly, his love, she was so shocked that she ran off without answering him, and then finally sent a lock of her hair back to him with a yes answer, which is, in fact, still on display in Richmond. So the answer is Chief Justice John Marshall.
And that's what you did, Lisa, right?
Okay, Team Madison. Which future justice worked as a page in the California legislature and played alongside the children of then Governor Earl Warren, who also went on to serve on the Supreme Court?
My former employer, Anthony McLeod Kennedy.
That is correct.
Very good.
Explains a lot.
All right.
Yeah.
Now, here we go. Which future Chief Justice was responsible for adding "In God We Trust" to U.S. currency? Now, you need to be civil about this one.
I think there's something fishy about this question.
Oh, come on.
Chase.
That's right, Justice Salmon Chase, who served as the Treasury Secretary before his appointment to the Supreme Court. Very good.
Which future justice, who has a reputation as being somewhat absent-minded, was in a bicycle accident shortly before his interview with the president for a seat on the Supreme Court?
Steve Breyer.
That's correct. And unfortunately for Justice Breyer, at that time, the seat went to Ruth Bader Ginsburg, but the following year, President Clinton would tap him for another vacancy.
All right. When he was a child, which future justice and lifelong Chicago Cubs fan attended the 1932 World Series game where Babe Ruth hit the famed called shot home run?
And he has the scorecard in his office still. It's Justice Stevens.
That's right, Justice John Paul Stevens. Very good. Excellent. And he attended the 2016 World Series and rooted for his beloved Chicago Cubs.
Okay. We're now moving to the next category, presidents and justices, but let's do a quick check-in with our score keeper. 8-7, it's a close game. All right, are you ready? In reference to Chief Justice Earl Warren and Justice William Brennan, which president said, "I made 2 mistakes as president and both of them are sitting on the Supreme Court"?
Eisenhower.
That is correct. A point for Team Madison.
Okay, this one may or may not be apocryphal, but which president said, quote, "John Marshall has made his decision, now let him enforce it," in reference to an opinion holding that Georgia had no constitutional authority to regulate persons visiting Cherokee lands?
Jackson. President Jackson.
President Jackson, that's right, very good. Case is Worcester versus Georgia.
Correct.
Oh, it is? Oops.
Which president, in a weekly chat, announced his plan to bring constant flow of new and younger blood into the judiciary?
For lack of a better answer, we'll go with FDR.
That is correct. He said this in one of his fireside chats discussing his court packing plan.
Okay, which president, known for his hardball tactics as a senator, manufactured a Supreme Court vacancy by nominating the son of one of the justices to be Attorney General?
Johnson.
That's right, Lyndon Johnson. He successfully persuaded Justice Tom Clark to retire after nominating his son, Ramsey Clark, to be the Attorney General.
All right, next question. Which president, generally regarded as one of the least effective presidents, holds the record for the most failed Supreme Court nominations?
Fillmore.
That is incorrect. Team Jefferson, would you like to steal the question?
Buchanan?
That is incorrect. It's John Tyler with 8 nominations that either were rejected by the Senate or otherwise withdrawn. And this was in a year and a half.
Partial credit.
Quick times. Okay, next question goes back to Team Jefferson.
All right, Team Jefferson. Which future justice asked his uncle, the president, for the coveted job of U.S. Attorney for Virginia, only to have his uncle turn him down because he was opposed to nepotism?
Future justice.
President whose nephew became justice.
And he's got quite a name.
Okay, go ahead.
Washington?
That's right, Bushrod Washington. Very good. According to former Justice Sandra Day O'Connor,
Everyone knows.
Bushrod Washington couldn't persuade his uncle, President George Washington, to name him the U.S. Attorney for Virginia. But Bushrod turned out okay. Just a year after President Washington left office, President John Adams nominated the 36-year-old Bushrod Washington to the Supreme Court.
All right, and next we're moving to a new category, Supreme Scandals. Let's first check in with Madison. We have a tie.
Hey.
All right. Team Madison, are you ready?
This is the best category. I'm excited.
Who is the only justice to resign under threat of impeachment? Oh, I didn't put the question up.
Fortis.
That is correct. After it came to light that he had accepted a bribe in exchange for seeking a presidential pardon for a former client who was faced with securities fraud charges.
All right. Which justice killed a man in a duel? Which justice killed a man in a duel?
Knowledge justice.
In fairness, there are actually 2 possible answers here. So either would work.
Surprising though it may be, there are 2.
Yes.
Maybe we should go with that as our answer.
I would have guessed it early.
Yeah, well,
I could go with your first instinct at this point.
Marshall.
Marshall. I'm sorry, it's not Marshall. So there are 2.
Oh, let's see
hey,
if
hey,
Team
wait,
Madison
they
wants
get
to
go-
steal.
Okay, that's right, they get to steal.
Team Madison?
Our first answer is Stephen Field.
No.
Can we give another one?
Sure, why not?
Livingston?
That's
That's
correct.
right.
That
That's
is
right.
correct. Should we give him half a
So
point?
Field, it wasn't a
we're gonna have to
duel? Is that
file
the
a
idea?
protest on this one.
I don't think we can accept that one.
It's
Okay.
friendly and all, but not that friendly.
Yeah, that's.
So why don't you share
we
what
should have a
happened in
point
the
for
2
Scalia then,
duels?
because
So with Justice Henry Brockholtz Livingston, he was punched in the nose by an angry Federalist, and so he killed the man in a duel in 1798 in Weehawken, New Jersey, the same place where Aaron Burr shot Alexander Hamilton. So that's justice number 1. The other justice who killed a man in a duel is Justice Peter Vivian Daniel, who killed a businessman, John Seddon, in a duel in Maryland in 1803, about 30 years before he joined the Supreme Court. And it didn't kill his nomination. Didn't even come up with confirmation.
Okay, so now the question, whose question is it?
It goes.
To Team Madison. Okay, which future justice tipped off the FBI about attempts by communists to infiltrate the civil rights organization he headed up?
Thurgood Marshall.
That is correct. He ran the NAACP's Legal Defense Fund.
All right, which justice was a vocal anti-Semite and would leave the room when his colleague and first Jewish justice, Louis Brandeis, would speak?
Justice McReynolds?
That's correct, Justice McReynolds. He's not a nice guy. And apparently none of his Supreme Court colleagues attended his funeral.
Shocker.
Good for them.
All right, next question for Team Madison. Which justice weathered 4 impeachment attempts and as many wives during his 36 years on the Supreme Court?
Go ahead.
The one, the only William O. Douglas.
That is right, Wild Bill William O. Douglas. And you know, I think we could have filled an entire category just with his scandals. There are entire books written about him on this topic.
All right. This is another rather violent one, but at least the justices on the receiving end and not killing someone this time. Which justice was attacked on a train by California Supreme Court Justice David Terry after ruling against Terry's wife's suit for divorce from her first husband? Now, I'm going to give you a hint. This is the longest serving justice who was nominated by Lincoln.
Is this O'Connor? No, I don't know what century that was.
The 12th.
And Paul was there.
We'll have to pass.
Okay. Team Madison.
That one is Field.
That is correct. It's Stephen Johnson Field.
Until we get it.
It's all Field.
I knew you were waiting for him to appear. Okay. Team Madison. Which infamous justice had an equally infamous father who drunkenly murdered a neighbor and fled from Maryland to Virginia to escape conviction? We're going to need an answer.
I think they're filibustering him.
Go ahead.
This is a shot in the dark. James Wilson?
That is not correct.
So that would give
Team Jefferson?
Justice Taney?
That is correct.
Very good.
well done.
Yeah, you know, he can't really blame his dad for being the one to sully the family name, though. So, all right. So this goes back to Team Jefferson.
Team Jefferson.
Okay. Which justice's nomination was marred by allegations of cronyism, leading to the narrowest confirmation vote, 24 to 23, in Supreme Court history, so far at least? He's known for writing Quizzo versus Hopkins. Closest vote.
That's about the only thing I know about this justice, is Quizzo.
Yeah. Well, now this too.
This too, yeah.
No other justice has been confirmed by just one vote.
So far. Any guesses? Okay.
Stephen Matthews.
I don't know if we can give that to them.
I think that's pretty close, though.
It's
what's
pretty
his first
close.
name?
Stanley.
It's Stanley Matthews.
Matthews
I
J.
think we give
Yeah,
Matthews.
Okay, they get the point.
No one should know his name, so that's good.
Okay. Team Madison. Which justice skipped oral arguments to deal with creditors and ended up in debtor's prison twice while serving on the Supreme Court? And I'll give you a hint. He was one of the original 6 justices.
Who's that too?
This is us.
Yes. Oh, sorry. Yes, team
Go.
Madison.
Yours? That's you.
Okay, James. I'll get the first name right this time. Wilson.
That is correct. The point for
right.
Team Madison. Okay.
Boy, you know, the current people are boring compared to this.
They really are.
Oh, we've got our baseball tickets these days. All right. Which justice was nicknamed Old Bacon Face, which will become my new favorite insult?
God.
Perhaps because his face would become so red when making fiery speeches against his political opponents during the contentious 1800 election. He's on the bench, and he's making fun of his political opponents during that election.
He did.
Old Bacon Face.
Should we give them a hint?
We can give you a
Yes,
hint.
you should.
He's later impeached.
Oh.
So he's.
Rutledge?
It was not Rutledge, but Rutledge is always a good guess when there's a scandal. So.
Douglas, no.
Team Madison, would you like to steal?
Sure. Samuel Chase?
That is correct.
It is Samuel Chase.
All right. Next question.
Old bacon.
Oh, and we are moving to a new category. Name that Chief Justice. So first, let's check in with Madison to see.
Madison is winning.
Madison is winning. It's 17 to 12, so
What?
still a pretty close game.
All right. We're
So
back at
Field
Team
and
Jefferson
Douglas.
now, right?
Oh,
No, no,
We stole.
they stole.
they stole. Okay, that's right.
Okay, next question. Sandra Day O'Connor attended law school with this future colleague, Supreme Court colleague, and they briefly dated.
Rehnquist?
That is correct. They both attended Stanford Law School.
I have to admit, this one's a little harder than the last one.
This was one of yours, Sheldon.
Yeah. So the really easy questions are from me. I just want everybody to know that.
Yes.
Not true.
Which justice and future Chief Justice resigned in 1916 after he was nominated as the Republican Party's candidate for president in a surprising third ballot of the National Convention?
Charles Evans Hughes?
That is correct. Very good.
Correct.
He obviously lost to Woodrow Wilson in the national election, but he later returned as Chief Justice about 16 years later.
Okay, next question for Team Madison. Which early Chief Justice resigned and later turned down a second chance to be Chief Justice after the Senate had already confirmed him?
This is intense.
We're going to need an answer.
Can we call a lifeline?
I don't think so.
Jay.
That is correct. It was John Jay, our very first Chief Justice. He resigned when he was elected governor of New York, and 6 years later, President Adams nominated him a second time, but he declined the appointment, and Adams went on to select John Marshall to be the Chief Justice.
Oh, not a bad second choice.
All right, Team Jefferson. A majority of the current justices today are Catholic, but in history, there have only been 13 Catholic justices. This infamous Chief Justice was the first. This is the second time the word infamous has been used in this competition.
I guess so. We'll go with Tawny again.
That's right, it's Tawny, best known today for writing Dred Scott versus Sanford.
Next question. Which Chief Justice, appointed by Nixon, founded the Supreme Court Historical Society in 1974 and served as the honorary chairman until his death?
To quote Homer Simpson, burger.
That is correct. It was Chief Justice Warren Burger.
There are no bonus points for quoting Homer, though. All right, Team Jefferson. After learning the Senate had rejected his nomination to Chief Justice, which sitting justice threw himself into the Charleston Bay, only to be saved by 2 slaves? Tried to kill himself. He was so despondent.
He was having a bad week.
He was having a bad week. It was not a good week for him. I can give you a hint. His nomination failed after he referred to the Jay Treaty as, quote, prostitution. Didn't go over well with the people who were supporting the Jay Treaty. And he's the first presidential nominee ever to be rejected by the Senate in any capacity.
I think Lisa should answer this one.
I knew the Arnold and Porter and Fortis question.
We'll say
So I'm
Rutledge.
at this point checked out.
Rutledge is correct. Very good. Excellent.
Done. All right, Team Madison, next question.
Pick one.
Which Chief Justice granted the motion of the first African-American attorney to be admitted to the Supreme Court bar? And this was the same day President Lincoln signed the 13th Amendment.
Morrison Waite.
That is incorrect.
Dump.
Team Jefferson, would you like to steal?
In theory, yes.
We'd love to.
We'll give you a hint. In his
It doesn't say
private notes,
infamous.
when he granted the motion, his private notes called John Rock's admission progress! !
Simon Chase?
That is correct.
Very good.
Well done.
Definitely not Tawny.
Yeah, not Tawny. All right. So now it's back to Team Jefferson.
Okay.
Which Chief Justice, a Wisconsin native, is credited with the Supreme Court's dogged insistence to remain open for business on snow days, even when most other federal offices have shut down?
I think it's Rehnquist.
That is correct.
I endured that.
Another point for Team
No,
Jefferson.
maybe pinkish.
All right.
Okay.
Jefferson has closed the gap pretty much.
And at this point, we're going to enter the final round of SCOTUS Simplified Rapid Response Round. But first, let's check on the score. We've got 20-17. Okay, so with this round, we ended with Team Jefferson. So we'll go back to Team
I
Madison.
think Madison just. No, Jefferson just won.
We just went. Yeah.
Yes. So now we're going to give you simplified headlines for Supreme Court decisions. And you'll have a brief amount of time to tell us the name of that case. Are you ready? Each team gets 10 questions. Team Madison, are you ready?
As ready as we will ever be.
First
We
question.
still get to confer?
Yes, you can confer. Briefly, you can confer. Tomatoes are vegetables.
No idea.
If you want to pass, that's fine.
Or dissent.
Or dissent.
Yeah, we'll pass that one.
Okay, next. Women can be cadets.
VMI.
That is correct. Next question.
I feel like we need a ding. Because we have right.
Madison, can you ding for us? Next question. Mr. Rogers helped save the Betamax.
Sony.
Yeah, what was it? Sony?
Sony.
Yeah.
I think that's good
Yeah.
enough. Sony Corp versus Universal City Studios. No unemployment benefits for peyote smoker.
Employment Division versus Smith.
I think, yeah.
That is correct. Forced sterilization is okay.
Dog versus Bell.
Yeah.
That is correct.
Always.
Man becomes president.
Bush versus Gore.
That is correct. Burglar gets a lawyer.
Oh, Gideon versus Wainwright.
Yeah.
That's
Gideon.
correct. Ding ding. No selling skim milk filled with coconut water.
Oh, the Minnesota case.
Products.
Yes.
Carolyn Products.
That is correct. Next, it's okay for Amish teens to be truant.
Wisconsin versus Yoder.
Thank you.
That is correct. And your final question, poisoning your husband's lover, not an international arms violation.
Bond.
That is correct. Now, do you want to circle back to tomatoes are vegetables? We're still passing on that one.
Not a clue.
Okay. Well,
Should we
great.
give that to them to try and answer it if they want?
Yes,
Yeah, sure.
great job, Team Madison. And now it's time for Team Jefferson's lightning round. But before we begin, do you know which case the court decided that tomatoes are vegetables?
No.
Okay.
Case is Nix versus Hedden. It was about customs regulations.
Still don't know it.
From the 1890s. Look it up.
This is a good one. This is a good
It's a good one.
All right. Ethnic French butchers lose their jobs. Butchers unemployed.
Why were they ethnic?
Just a little flavor to the.
Flavor.
It has a
Just
generic
any
name.
Multi-generational French families, immigrant families to this part of the country.
Okay.
All right. Steamboat inventor loses monopoly. Steamboat inventor loses monopoly. I'm trying to think if there's a good hint for that one. I don't.
Just skip.
All right.
Oh.
All right. Well, we'll go straight to the next one, which is totally different. Porn magazine can mock preacher.
Hustler versus Falwell.
That is
Very
correct.
good. All right, you got that one. And we'll switch from porn magazines to religious groups. Religious group can sacrifice chickens. Religious group can sacrifice chickens.
Santeria, but I don't, what's the case? I don't even know if I have the name. It's the Florida, is it Santeria?
They are
It is the
Santeria.
Santeria
Religion,
case.
I think that's close enough.
It's hard. It's the Church of the Lukumi Babalu I, which is rolls off the tongue, versus the city of Hialeah, Florida. Very good. All right. The Air Force has to pay for scaring chickens to death. This is an actual takings case.
This sounds like Lisa should know the answer.
Did they get credited with a point for the chicken slaughter? Okay, good.
You had other butchers. We got 2 butcher categories here. Now we've got chickens again. All right. Okay. Rock band gets a trademark.
Yeah. Tam.
That's right.
Correct.
All this here okay. We've done butchers and now we're bakers. Bakers can work all day long. Bakers get to work long hours.
Lochner?
Lochner, very good.
Correct.
Lochner. German saboteurs are dead. Very good.
Correct.
That was, I wasn't sure if anyone was going to get that one. That's great. Right. School children don't have to salute the flag. School children do not have to salute the flag.
It's a pair of sisters, if that helps at all.
No, we all know what it is. We're all universally blanking on the name of the case. So
If you can give me some of the...
It's 2 sisters.
They share a last name with a pretty well-known law professor from around town. here in
Libertarian
DC.
law professor.
Libertarian law
in-
professor.
Barnett.
That's right.
That's correct.
Oxford University Barnett.
We appreciate the hint.
All right. President can't take over a steel mill. President can't take over a steel mill.
Youngstown?
Youngstown, that's right.
Correct.
All right.
All right. Let's check in with the scorekeeper. Not too shabby. Well, we have enough time for one final round of SCOTUS Simplified. So we'll go back to Team Madison with just 4 questions. And then and then you get your drink. They asked if they could have beer on stage. I said no. Okay, first question. Team Madison, are you ready?
You betcha.
What's our category?
This is SCOTUS Simplified. More of the same. And I think Sheldon wrote these ones because they look kind of hard. Bill of Rights don't apply to the territory of Hawaii. And that's a hint for half of the one side of the caption.
The insular cases?
Is that what are they referred to as such? No?
This one is not insular cases.
Okay. Sorry. Next question. Religious group can't pamphleteer in the airport.
ISKCON.
Oh,
ISKCON?
ISKCON, yeah.
International Society of Christian Consciousness.
Yes.
Yes, International Christian Consciousness, whatever.
Yeah, that's correct. Sorry. Okay. No prayer at high school graduation.
Lee versus Wiseman?
You should be the one to answer that.
Yeah, exactly. My curse. Lee versus Wiseman.
That's correct. And final question. Their interracial marriage is not a crime.
Loving versus Virginia.
That is correct. Good job, Team Madison. Now back over to Team Jefferson.
All right.
Done?
Final questions. State can ban women from practicing law. state can ban women from practicing law? Pairs well with the slaughterhouse cases.
How do you know that? It's a curse.
Bradwell?
That's true.
Bradwell, that's
Ding,
right.
ding, ding,
Bradwell
ding,
versus
ding.
Illinois. Excellent. All right. College trustees take back control of their school. College trustees take back control of their school.
Is that Dartmouth?
That's right. Dartmouth College versus Woodward. Okay. Minnesota can't shut down a scandalous newspaper. No shutting down a scandalous newspaper for Minnesota.
Yeah.
And I believe
Kind of
this was the
prior
case
restraint.
where the court incorporated the First Amendment. Free press clause, I believe. We'll have to fact check that.
No, it wasn't.
Can you get
Just give us a
close?
little bit.
State of Minnesota.
There you go.
There you go. Is it far away or is it?
Near.
There you go.
We're slow even with the hints.
Okay. No school prayers.
We have a hint.
Got a bunch of Jews here, I think.
We're praying now, but it's not working.
I don't have a hint for this one.
That one's Engel versus Vitale.
All right, and with that, we've come to the end of our second round of SCOTUS Simplified. Let's check in with Madison to see which team.
Team Madison is still in the lead with 32, Jefferson.
Well, I'd say that's a pretty respectable score for both teams, and that concludes our first ever and possibly last ever Supreme Trivia here at the Heritage Foundation. Now, our victors will each get their very own gavel that says 2018 Supreme Trivia Champion, the Heritage Foundation, and National Constitution Center, and they will have personalized sounding blocks. That's the thing you bang the gavel on. I learned that recently. So we'll send those to you because we didn't order them in advance. But anyway, please join me in congratulating Team Madison and thanking Team Jefferson. And Team Jefferson gets to be first in line at the bar.